And hi, everybody.
Hello, hello. Happy holidays to y'all.
I wore festive.
Who enjoyed the Christmas tree down in the lobby that doesn't have a top? It just goes to the...
Does anyone find that odd? Like it was just, someone went, oh, shoot.
Who's not measuring the top of that Christmas tree?
Measure twice, cut once.
It's so good to be in front of you all tonight. Patrick and I talk about being the two luckiest men in the room. It's such an interesting opportunity to be in a room full of creative people and trying to think through and create opportunities for you all, or give you the tools you need to open up yourself in a creative career. At RevThink, what we'd like to say is we come alongside next generation creative entrepreneurs. Our desire really is to walk alongside you in that process. Patrick and I met now many moons ago in this process, and when I first heard Patrick, I think it was on one of our podcasts, actually, because you had met Joel first. And he was expressing what he knew about the television content business. I knew immediately the way he was thinking was not a traditional way of thinking. So I called him, dragged him in, made him teach me the things that he knew. And that process has shown a lot of success in our industry over the years. So to be here tonight, to be able to share it with you, we're very, very thankful. I feel very, very lucky to be here. So thanks for joining us. I appreciate that. I'm going to introduce you to us because some of you, that button,
Oh, you were close. Oh.
Hey!
Look at that handsome pic.
Some of you have only been here a few times. Some of you were turned away last time we were here. So my name is Tim Thompson. My company is called RevThink. I started the company about 12 years ago with the desire to, like I say, come alongside the creative entrepreneur. Patrick Jager was one time a RevThinker and now an executive at NBC and Rehearsal. And if you've been coming here for 3 sessions or 4 sessions, you've watched Patrick's career evolve into that role over the last 12 months. So our opportunity to share with you tonight not only comes from working with folks like you, but also Patrick is on the other team. And he went from a seller to a buyer in this process. And so a lot of things that you're going to hear coming from Patrick really is his personal desire to qualify you sooner to give him less headaches later on.
Apt.
Right.
That's well done.
Yeah, thank you. So true. I'm just telling the truth today.
No, it's true.
Before we get too far, I'd like you to write down this URL, RevThink, that's with a V, revthink.com/NATPE. I will talk about this a little bit later, but we have 2 opportunities we want you to know about. Those of you who are in this room who sign up on our website will have an opportunity to meet with Patrick and myself at the NATPE conference in January. We'll sit down with you and we'll look over your pitch. We'll help you prep for whatever meetings you have going on, and in order to sign up for that time slot, go to our website, give us your name and information, and we'll do that process for you. We want to be there for you. We'll be there for the 3 days of the event, and we want to be there for you as you are working through your nerves, trying to get things ready to go. We just want to give you all the confidence and ability and any last words we can give you before you start that session. So please join us at that website there to do that. We also have a couple other opportunities that we'll share later that we're going to create for the NATPE group, this NATPE group 2, that we want you to know about. But please write down that URL. It's going to be important for you as we go from this point now into the show, the NATPE show, helping you not just make your TV show, but actually get some cash for it, sell that thing at the conference coming up. The love I have for this industry really comes from just being a child who, like many of us, grew up with a babysitter called a television set. And there was something so magical happening on that TV screen that I knew one day I just wanted to be there. So one day I got into my Toyota Corolla. I drove to Glendale, California. I rented a room at Grandma Val's house. And it was in September, and I called my mom. And I remember watching TV, and the Emmys were on. And I was in Glendale, and that was Pasadena. And I said to my mom, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm almost there. Like television is happening just miles from where I was sitting. Within 12 months, the following year, I was walking down the red carpet at the Emmys. Now, I was part of the television creation. Unfortunately, I wasn't nominated for an Emmy. But the fact that that can happen, that you can pursue your dreams, find those dreams, and follow those dreams is a very Hollywood experience. So I believe most of us know we get into this industry for a reason and a cause, but the work it takes to go through that industry, to do this work, isn't just a job. It isn't just a project or a pitch. It's what I call the creative career. You probably call it the same way. And I've recognized in this creative career, there's a path that we follow as a process. We start off in our industry as just being the artist, the doer, we're the maker, we're the thinker, and it's like an artist with a canvas. We just start painting. And if you're selling it by the shore, making the paintings of the caricatures at Disneyland, or whatever that artwork is that you're making, some of those painters become very famous, and they sell artwork for $1 million, but most of us painters still just paint. So we look around and we see, well, we're not gonna make a living doing this. We must do something else to make a living. And we notice other people are making money and doing work in a certain way. And we start scaling our work. Some of us go into business. We start some business model where other people work for us. And we begin the process of what I call the auteur. An auteur is somebody in the creative industry where other people do the work and you get credit for it. So the example I like to use is a Steven Spielberg film. Steven's getting the credit, but many, many people are in the process, go through the process of making that film with Steven Spielberg. It's an auteur stage, and it's a stage of scale, greater opportunity, but it's more work than just being the famous artist. My revelation one day was, I thought, maybe like many of you, that was the process. Moving from artist to auteur, and then make lots and lots of great stuff, make lots and lots of money, and then I retire someday with all this intellectual property that's gonna keep paying me passive income, and as we say, mailbox money. And then I hit something like 40, and it doesn't seem like that's ever going to be true. So my struggle led me to something of even greater scale. And I did something different. Instead of thinking of myself, I say you take the same process, add C for community, and you become a curator. Now, a curator, like an artist, is out worrying about the artists that are making, but the job of a curator, like a gallery owner, is someone who spends their time actually building up others. And the job of the curator is actually promoting others in the artwork so that they can grow and thrive, and some of that eventually flows back to you. So the principal job there isn't actually doing the artwork, but actually promoting, and the opportunity for scale becomes great. And as you grow that scale and create that opportunity, other new opportunities come along your way. Very, very few of us enter this stage of our career. Because the model we see from the outside, you can't really tell the difference between an auteur and a creator, but inside an auteur or a curator, but inside that person knows there's a different direction to travel as they go there. And I'll tell you this, if you can evolve to this stage of your career, you're going to do just fine. And you'll be in the minority of people in this industry. But I've discovered one more piece. And it works like this. There are some people who decide to go and buy a piece of art for $1 million. And when they buy it, they hang it on the wall of a museum for free. And somehow they make money. That's the job of a collector. They're recognizing something else, that when you grab something and then you hang it somewhere else, that the value of art itself moves up the ladder. So I like to say this, it's one thing to be, all ships rise and fall with the same tide. It's one thing to be a ship, it's another to be the tide. The process of artist, auteur, curator, and collector is the work of influence. And as you go along, the reality is we are all collecting all the time. There are people we meet, there's things that we learn, there's processes we get interested in, and that collection of knowledge and people, experience, and stories, as we gather all those together, and then we leverage it out of ourself, not to keep it, but to give it away, builds up community. And when you're a community maker, you're an influencer. And if you can influence people, you move from a taker to a giver, or a student to an elder. So my encouragement to you tonight is, as we're doing this, to look around, your left and your right, because today you're part of a community. And the work you're doing here, as we're just stirring things up and talking and telling jokes and drinking water and the things that we're doing up here, is just an idea of a spark. But we want to hand that off to you. We want to give that work to you to do. And we want you to surface yourself where you are in this stage and help you fulfill those desires to become the person you want to be in your creative career. So that's our hope and desire tonight. As part of that, we're just going to share with you what we know. We'd love for you to ask us questions. There are question cards.
We got them.
We already have questions?
We do.
How do we have questions already?
Very
I just
deep
got done with the
questions.
collector stage.
I just want to make sure you guys are all okay being here till midnight.
So we have the question cards. Feel free to write those down. I think you pass them to this way or give it to us later. We're going to answer the questions as we go along or at the end. We want you to be part of that. But we also want you to be part of something else special tonight. And that is the final step in this process of ShowLauncher. Patrick has been walking us through the 3 stages or the 3 aspects to making a show and selling it. And tonight, the conversation is going to be about perfecting the pitch.
Nope, that was the last one. I'm going to recap that, and then we're going to go on.
Yeah. I'm going to hand it off to Patrick now.
Give me the thing. Hi. Okay, so in the Mutt and Jeff routine, for those of you that remember, I never remember if I'm Mutt or Jeff,
Me
but
either.
You guys can let us know. So here's the thing that's really fascinating about the auteur. I always thought of myself as the artist, and I realized that really I am a curator, and I'm a collector, and I'm an artist. And I think a lot of you in this room, if you haven't been here for all 3, if you haven't, I'm going to try to catch you up really fast. Yeah. For those of you that have, you know that what we're talking about here is the fact that you might be a writer or an actor / whatever else you have to do to make a living, because been there, done that. Or you might be a production company, or you might be in animation or graphics or whatever you are. You might consider yourself an artist or an auteur, but your job, the reason you are here today is because you have something bigger to do, right? You have something bigger to say. And the way that someone takes you seriously is you don't go in and say, hi, you might know me, I was in that commercial, and so on. It's like, they don't care. There's some blunt facts here. They don't care about that. They want to know that you have gotten to a point in your career that what you have to say trumps what someone else is going to say, and they're going to say the exact same thing. Because if you've been with this for a while, you know that one of the adages is there's no such thing as a new idea. It's how you say it, and it's how you practice it, and it's how you get to there. So phase 1 was, we were talking all about how do you figure out if you have a good idea? How do you figure out if you have a good piece of intellectual property or a good talent? How do you figure out how to do development? And one of the things we talked about was this idea of reverse engineering. Everyone says they have a good idea, but if you go into a room and say, I have a good idea, they're going to be like, great, I heard that same idea 3 times last week. And I can give you a million examples of that happening to me. Hello. It's not the idea, it's what got you to that idea. So understanding the demographics of who you're pitching to, understanding what's important to them, why they should buy this, who their audience is. Because they don't care about you, they care about being able to move the needle for advertisers or box office revenue or whatever the thing is. For me, it's subscribers. So I don't really care about your idea. I care about, does that idea give me the value that I need out of it?
And I like to reconcile it this way. Our relationship with content usually is one of a consumer. So the reason we watch a piece of content is because we like it. So in the making of the content, a naive way is thinking, I'll make something that I like. And just making something that's good that you would like doesn't necessarily mean it's a good opportunity or business opportunity for someone to put it on air. There are other pieces to it.
So last time we talked about 5 big things. I'm going to go through this really quick because there's a lot to go through and there are a lot of questions and it's the holidays. We're going to see some carols. Oh, don't think I'm not. You guys, you clearly have not been around this session before. All right, so we talked about crafting your elevator pitch and perfecting that pitch deck and reverse engineering. Let me just see, okay. It's this one slide. So crafting your elevator pitch. What we talked about there was the fact that an elevator pitch is designed for a reason. If you only have 3 floors on an elevator, you better be able to do your pitch. Nothing is worse than someone coming into a room, they go, so I have this idea, and it's this love story between this dog and this cat, and it goes something like this. They are in LA, no wait, they're in San Francisco, but then they go to LA, I'm already out. I'm already out. I don't care if it's scripted or non. You have to be able to say something in a concise way. As a matter of fact, my team, when I was in a production company, I would only let them pitch me something that they could get down to a paragraph. If they couldn't get down to a paragraph, I said, just wait till you do. One day you will, and you'll sell it. I once sold 20 shows. I'm not saying this to brag, I'm saying this because there is a formula. I sold 20 shows in 1 year to development. Not necessarily, they didn't all get on air, but that was because we waited until we had the pitch right. We didn't just go into a room and just like, we're gonna tell you how it is. So craft an elevator pitch that is concise, that is able to answer the who, what, when, where, why, and how. That's gonna make someone go, okay, great, tell me more. First big thing. Second one is perfecting your pitch deck. If you go in with 3 pieces of paper where you have typos and no visuals that I have absolutely no idea after I read it what it was for, you're done. Third, reverse engineering. This is what we were talking about. I was just mentioning. I should read the slides before I start talking because I would have gotten the right order. This is not starting with the idea. The idea is nothing if you haven't backed into why that idea is good. Who are you selling it to? Why do they care? Why are they going to give you money? What is it that they need to achieve? Because ye who has the money wins. If they're paying, it doesn't matter what your idea is. You are not Steven Spielberg. What matters is that they are going to get a return on their investment. They want to know that the art that they hang on that wall is going to make more money, right? Or they wouldn't put it on the wall. So why you? If you cannot answer that, you are not ready to pitch.
By the way, they want that so they don't get fired. So if you think about the real personal agenda is, in order to not get fired, they need a return on investment. You need to help them not get fired by giving them the information on their behalf.
Mm-hmm. To sizzle or not to sizzle, this is, when is it okay to just go in with a paper pitch and a verbal pitch, and when do you need to have something sexy for them to look at? Going into the next thing, creating the perfect sizzle. Sometimes the best sizzles are not shot, they're ripped. A ripped sizzle means I'm pulling stuff off the internet that's a milieu of what I'm trying to say. Because whatever you show better be something you feel good about. Because if you show something that isn't quite right, that's what they're going to judge you on.
And we say that to you so just to beg you, please, please, please don't go around and spending $10, $20, $30, $40, $100,000 trying to get the perfect sizzle when you could have just ripped it off the internet and put something together to see if your idea flies. Mm-hmm. The way I like to say it is, you don't get 1 chance, you get 4 minutes. No, so how do you present the best 4 minutes? Okay, so 2 minutes. Yeah, no, you don't get 1 chance, but you get 2 minutes.
Yep.
What's the best thing you could present forward in those 2 minutes to get to the next 8 minutes? Not try to just use it one time or 1 chance at a time.
So tonight is all about what do you do when you get in that room, right? We've all gotten our ideas. We're going to move forward. But before we do that, last session we had a great time because in session 1 we really said, especially afterwards when we were at the bar, Marie Callender's, rest its soul, we spent time saying, dude, look at your left and your right and come together and start looking. And last meeting, a group had come together and they bought IP and they've been moving forward. So I want to ask, for those of you that have been doing this for a few times, are there any success stories you want to share?
Right there?
I got the marketing, I got the trademark of the name, and one of our videos has almost 6,000 views. We've been getting our
All right, I will say this loud so everyone
Yeah.
Property thing, I did what you told me.
About the intellectual property.
So, first session we talked about own your IP. If you can't own it, others can. So own your IP. You have now locked in that IP. You're working now on getting your viewership up on your videos. You're making them. I will say I think the quality has gone up on the videos. I'm watching.
Yeah.
This is a process. You're not going to do this right. You hear those stories. Analogy that I have is I used to go to a Starbucks. I live in Denver, but I lived in LA for a long time. I have escaped LA. And when I lived in LA, I had a Starbucks on Melrose I used to go to a lot, where a lot of us would just sit around on our computers for hours. I'm sure that sounds familiar. We've all been to those Starbucks.
I saw many of you downstairs right now. Yeah.
And there was a barista there that always had scripts with him, and he would tell people that he has these scripts. Well, he ended up getting a 2-picture deal and is now a very large screenwriter in Los Angeles. You hear that story is the outlier of the outlier of the outlier. This is hard work. Those of us that succeed, I did not have gray hairs before I got into this business. I mean, the way that you succeed by doing and learning and testing and going and pitching and failing. Your first idea very rarely gets done. I have a script that I am now refunding. I sold it, got into turnaround, shelved. I've tried to dust it off about 15 times. We ended up just rewriting it from scratch and tweaking it, and now we're back out.
So Patrick, 30 seconds, explain how to lock in IP, because that's a success story.
Sure.
But how do you actually do that?
So IP is your intellectual property. What's it based on? IP is important because in a world where the margin of difference between your idea and your idea is a sliver, having something that you can say, no, but I actually have something it's based on. So there's ideas that you invent, and there are ideas that are actually based on something that you do or have.
And that could be a person's story.
Person's story.
That's intellectual property you can buy.
It can be a book. It can be an article. It can be a place.
Piece of technology.
I mean, you've all registered. How many of you have registered something with the WGA? There you go. So that's IP. But the difference between just registering something and an IP is where you secure the rights through a lawyer. And you actually have a paper trail that says, I own this.
Because the second question, when someone likes your idea, is going to be, did you lock in the intellectual property?
Yeah.
Because otherwise there's nothing to buy. Wait, any more success stories? That was one. I'm going to see if there's, anyone else raise their hand?
You should have planted a couple people.
Yeah, right. I can only see the back. You have to yell if you're in the back. I can only see like 7 rows back. All right, cool.
Well, I'm going to point out some friends in a little bit, but a success story is they now have, how many pitches are you taking to market? Yes, you.
Diana?
Over 10.
10.
Over 10 that we developed.
10 pitches that are deck, sizzle, elevator pitch almost there, ready to go to the meeting. 10. So, again, process. And our job as curators, our job, this is really what we like the most. Yes, I have a day job, you have a day job, but this helping other people achieve what you have as your creative journey, that's so cool.
Yeah.
It really is what we love. So tonight is about the meeting and the deal. You've done your IP work, you've gotten your sizzle, you've gotten your deck, you are ready to go into the meeting like our friends over here, they're ready to go. What do? Yeah, that was energy. I like that. We just had a Starbucks. They're all caffeinated out. They're all good. So tonight we're going to go through 5 things as well. Going it alone versus partnerships, getting the meeting, how to present and read the room. Once you've sold the project, now what? And then talking about distribution. Okay, and we use nonfiction or reality, non-scripted, as our basis only because that's my background, although I have sold scripts and have, I've done both sides. So there are questions that are very pertinent purely to scripted that you can ask, but the advice is the same. The process is the same. The difference is whether or not you have to have a script. But in most cases, if you give too much away with a script or with a treatment, anything, it just gives him that much more to poke holes in.
And I want to just say this as Patrick goes on this list. We want to be very clear. You have to do your homework first before you do session 3. So don't just think these are the answers to the keys to the kingdom. When you're ready, these are the steps that you want to do. And we want to be there for you and help you. So things that we can do, anything that we can engage you with, sit down at Starbucks with you along the way, meet you at NATPE. We want to help you walk through some of these finer details because we can only express so much in 2 hours. There are many small pieces that you'll have questions for along the way.
And if you haven't, go back and watch the first 2 if you're new to the room.
Or join us next year. We're going to do this again.
We're going to do it again, but with new jokes. It's going to be great.
Yeah, right.
So going it alone versus partnerships. This is a really important thing. How many of you have produced television? How many of you have sold television? All right, you can go at it alone.
Successfully or unsuccessfully?
Successfully.
Oh, okay. Right.
All right, much less hands.
Yeah.
Good question.
Yeah, right.
You could probably go at it alone. If you are new to this business, television, film, doesn't matter. It goes back to why you. Very few people have whatever that secret sauce is to be able to walk into a room or stand behind a bar at Starbucks and sell. One of the things that I suggest a lot, and I've had to do this in my career too, is think about whether or not you have to go in with partners. Why a partner? So I had a show that I did through a production company that I was head of development on. We did a show for VH1. We were a network that was known for TLC and HGTV and Food Network. So VH1 looked at us and said, you can't do that kind of show. So we partnered. We partnered with Drew Barrymore's company. Why? Because it was Drew Barrymore. And they were like, ooh, we want Drew Barrymore's show. So we sold the show. Drew Barrymore did nothing on that show. I hope none of you work for Drew. She's a nice lady. So if you do, tell her I say hi. But the reality is that they did no work, but I could never have sold that show alone. So partnership is not admitting defeat on your part or that you're not good. It is a strategic move to get something made.
Can I clarify too? What we mean by partner isn't the person sitting next to you that you like. It isn't your best friend because they're your best friend. We want you to find the pieces that you don't have a capability for currently and find a partner that has those capabilities.
Or not even just capabilities. In the case of Drew's company, they have great capabilities, but they had a reputation that I did not have.
And so you want the missing link. You don't have to like the person necessarily. You don't have to know that person, but if you have a good value proposition, other people will partner with you to make that opportunity take place. But that's what you're looking for, not just your neighbor or
Correct.
your uncle or whoever.
Correct.
People
It's
are.
not the guy that can give you the free lights.
Yeah.
That's not going to help.
Don't be. Hide the lights.
That's for the student film. We've all done that too.
Yes.
I just found a student film. It was awful, by the way. I just want to.
Was it on High 8?
Well, no, it had been switched over to VHS. Yeah. It was awesome. So anyway, all right. So we digress. So once you've decided you're going to go on the partnership, the most important thing is don't do it on a handshake. Really have very clear expectations and secure that partnership up front. The best of intentions are rarely followed through unless there's some documentation. Why is that important? Because if you think that you are all that, and you know you could have done whatever project you have by yourself, but you need to do this person, you need to have this other entity because that's the only way you're gonna get it sold, you will forever be angry that you have this relationship.
Yeah. Do not compromise on this step. If the best you can do is download a document off of the internet, hire LegalZoom. If the best you can do is hire LegalZoom, then hire a real lawyer. Like always go above what you think the expectations are. Any compromise at this step means compromises later, and it's way. The greatest TV shows are ruined because these contracts are not set up after 1 or 2 years of successful seasons.
And to that end, nothing is minutia here. Literally down to, we will have meetings on Tuesdays, we'll have it as a lunch meeting, we go Dutch. It sounds stupid, but if the other person said, you should be paying because you're using my name, it's only because of me that it got done. That's enough to ruin a good thing.
And Patrick's just saying that because I made him buy my Starbucks.
Again, let's just be clear about that. So, when you're negotiating a partnership, some really important things. Self-inventory. Why do I need this person? What is it? What are those deficiencies that I need? And by the way, when you go into a room to pitch, you have to make that very clear. Tim and I are in this together. We're coming in together because he is the yin to my yang. And when we go into a room together, literally we can finish each other's sentences, but I come at it from a creative and he comes at it from a line producer standpoint. So I can think about how I'm going to spend all the money and he can tell me how I'm not.
That's right.
That makes people go, okay, I get that.
It also makes him a good partner because he'll buy your Starbucks every time because he's not good at the finance stuff.
We really have to talk about this. Ashley, we got to talk about this. This can't keep going. All right, but take that inventory. Make sure you understand what your deficiencies are. And I know this feels very nutsy-bolty for a creative room, but this is business. This is not art. None of us are in this room because we just love getting up in the morning and facing rejection every day. We are all in this room to make money. And if you're not, if you're totally in this for the art, we're probably not, you could probably go down to Starbucks and buy us some coffee and come back up. Yeah. But honestly, go into this understanding why you need to, and leave your ego at the door. As Tim said, more great ideas go zero, nowhere, because I am so much smarter than you. What I have learned in far too many years in this business, what I have learned is that I am not the smartest person in the room. As a matter of fact, the only people I want in a room are people smarter than me. Because otherwise, why are they there, right? Like if they're there literally just to nod at what I'm saying and say, oh my gosh, Mr. Jager, you're so smart. I don't want them in the room. Do this inventory and be very, very honest. And be honest with the person that you're going, like, look, I believe that I know what I am not, but what I am is the director. What I am is the writer. What I am is the line producer. That is what I am. And you need to appreciate that, understand that, and we need to have a very clear understanding.
Yeah, and please write this down, especially that row there that has all your notebooks. I don't know what you guys did at this row, but you guys have all your notebooks out.
Oh, they do. They're all
I know, they're so smart. This right here.
It's a good row.
Please do yourself this favor at this moment. Decide who the boss is. Mm-hmm. You need to know, when it comes down to it, who actually owns it, who gets to take it forward, and who gets to make the final word. That part can't be shared. It's just going to be an argument. So if you have to give something up, recognize that you're partnering with somebody and you're giving it up so that they can take you further,
right? And
trust that they have their own interest in mind, will do it. But to create arguments at the end because that wasn't decided, decide who the boss is.
There's a very, very fine line between humility and humiliation. Humility is being able to say, I don't have to know. Humiliation is when you go into a room and you bomb because you both thought you were the smartest person in the room.
Yeah, right.
Like, get that out of the way. So then the other question is, do you partner in the front end or the back end? Do you need to partner before you go into a pitch? Because someone's going to look at you and you say, you're Joe Schmo, I have no reason why you're in my office right now. So you need to partner beforehand? Or is the idea or the IP so unique, you're the only person that could have this IP? I'll give you an example. Probably 3 years ago, I had a friend who said, hey, I have this guy that has this crazy footage that no one else has. This guy had gone 6 times to Chernobyl. By the way, that's still radioactive, just so we all know. 6 times he had spent a month each time in Chernobyl with drones and high-def cameras. He had the most extensive library of footage of Chernobyl there was. He had gotten to a bad production deal, nothing was happening. The 30th whatever anniversary of Chernobyl was coming up. He's like, what should I do? I'm like, great, get out of that deal, I'll help you. I will sell your concept into a network, and then we will pair you up with a production company that can actually make it happen. So he had IP that nobody else could have. So the network was buying the IP, and then they said, who can make this? He had something very unique. If you don't have something that is unique enough that people are going to be like, okay. And it's rare that you have something that unique. Think about if you need to partner up ahead of time. That's like, hey, we're coming in together because you already know Tim. You don't know me, but you know Tim. So and Tim can vouch. Patrick, he's a good guy. We're going to do this together, right?
And what's nice about the partnering up front is you actually don't have to make it. When you have the thing that's unique, you can put that forward and give it to the production partner that will then take it forward, and you don't have to make it. You collected the IP to begin with. That's the opportunity that's part of the upfront deal.
Okay. You may have partnered, you may have not. We're going to move on. Whew. Enough on that slide. All right, so now we're going to get into the meeting. How do you get into the room? How do you get intros? How do you consider representation? Myriad, you should read those cards.
Oh yeah,
you should. Go. This question's in there, so I'm going to take this question out. How do you get in the room? Same way that you come up with a pitch, you have to figure that out. You have to do the path. I had never talked to anybody at Amazon, did not know anyone at Amazon, but weirdly enough, 8 people on my LinkedIn work at Amazon or on the board of Amazon, so I started getting inroads into Amazon. Don't need it now. I took a job at a competing network group, but I had my sights set on getting into Amazon. So first and foremost, look around who you know. Chances are it's not your neighbor that's going to get you the meeting. It might be. You might live next to the development assistant at a production company. You might live next to the comptroller of a network. It's LA. It happens. But it might be that you need to do LinkedIn, or you need to start doing research and figure out how you connect with them through whatever. But you need to do your research getting into the room, just like you do your research on getting prepared to get into that room. The one thing I will really suggest you not do, because when people do this to me, 2 things. Please do not do this. Number 1, do not send me a cake. Or okay, oh my God, this is the best one ever. So this happened before I started at my company, but someone had sent an idea on a pillow that had been hand embroidered, front and back, the whole idea. And it now sits in, we now have a shrine to really bad ways to connect with us. And this is front and center in the shrine. Don't be cute. We don't care. No one cares. As a matter of fact, no one will even eat those cookies because people get freaked out. Take this like a business. Don't do a singing telegram. Figure out a way into the door. That might take you a very long time. But do your homework. Part of that is getting intros. Find someone that they will know and trust. They don't know me, but they know Tim. So, hey, Tim, would you, I know that you're good friends with so-and-so. I have this pitch. I'd love for you to read it and see if you think it's good enough to get in there. And if so, would you mind making an intro for me? Right. Like that, again, that takes humility, right? You need to be humble. None of us are Steven Spielberg in this room, myself included.
Or maybe he is. I can't see in the back.
Steven, we're shaking, bro. Let's talk later. The other thing to think about how getting in the meeting is how someone else can do it for you, and this is where representation comes in play. Many of us have agents, many of us have managers, many of us have publicists, or we know those people. So think about whether or not it is getting in through people that work at those companies, or if it's getting in through agents or managers or lawyers. Yeah?
Sorry, did you say 2 things don't do, and did you say the second thing?
Oh, okay. Thank you. I digress. I do that a lot.
Keep him on track.
I was up till 2 a.m. I had a talent summit for the last 3 days, and we had 35 talent, and we ended up randomly with Conan O'Brien at 1 in the morning at a hotel bar. It was fun times.
All right, the second thing.
Okay, sorry, gosh. All right. So the second thing, first is that the second one is to tell me you know someone. Get my email, because that's easy, and say that you have been suggested on behalf, someone suggested you go in. Because chances are, I'm going to ask that person, like, hey, how do you know this person? And if they say they don't know, and you might have been like, you know what, I just need an in. Once I'm in, I'm golden. I'm never going to respond to you. And I'm going to flag you. So never bullshit a bullshitter. And in this business, those of us that sit in the places of importance are all bullshitters. That's how we got to where we are, because we can make things up on the fly. No, it's true. I sold 20 shows because I know how to bullshit. And we're going to talk about it. It's called a pivot. If I don't know, I'm going to tell you I know, and I'm going to make it very clear that I knew from the beginning. And that's how things get sold, and that's how you get budgets, and that's how you get an assistant. We've all been in this business. We all know that's how it works.
Can I just tell you why? The cute idea or the lying to get in the door, the reason why it doesn't work is these people are professionals. They have a whole job, and this is the job they do. And that cute pillow, you know right away, this is the only idea that company has. Yeah. And you want to work with other professionals, so you don't show your hand by coming in with you using amateur tactics. You're a professional also. You want to present yourself like a professional, do it the right way.
That's the other way of saying it. It's the same thing. I mean, the reality is, because we've all been there. We've either done it ourselves at some point in my career, or we've seen it enough times that we just roll our eyes. You know, there really is no such thing as a new idea. So let's say you get into the room. Now, you might say all you're doing is throwing up all these hurdles, all these roadblocks. Yes. There are the big 5 networks. There's a gazillion cable outlets. There's a gazillion digital outlets. There's a million different ways to watch scripted nowadays. You don't have to shoot on some fancy camera. You can, quite frankly, do amazing things on non and sell it as indie. So, there's so many outlets, but for every outlet, there is an infinite number of people pitching them. But the power lies in less than 100 companies. I would say, actually, I'm gonna take that back. The power lies in less than 50 companies.
And shrinking.
They provide the mass majority of all content that makes money. So you are going up against an industry that does not want you or me to succeed. So you need all of these benchmarks, you need all of these hindrances, because if you can't make a sizzle or a pitch deck or figure out how to get in the room, quite frankly, you don't deserve to be in that room.
And that's how they'll think about it.
And quite frankly, they should. Because money is scarce, and money is getting more and more scarce because the eyeballs aren't what they used to be. It's so diversified. And I know that sounds scary, and I know that sounds doom and gloom, but again, this is a business. It's a business for those of us that buy. It's a business for those of us that create. It's a business for those of us that participate in it, be you an actor or a writer or a producer or a director or a gaffer. It is a business.
Yeah, but that's also why we're here, because
100%.
It only is making a pitch. It only is making a sizzle, and it only is having a meeting, and it only is explaining that in an elevator pitch. So it's the thought that professionals know how to do those 4 things and do it well. And I'll tell you, there's no magic to that process either. You just need to know it needs to get done with confidence, with understanding, and moving forward with it as a plan. That's what people want to see. They want to see you working towards your desires. They'll partner with you every time.
So I'm gonna just stop here. How many people have we totally overwhelmed? No,
Are we talking too fast?
Who have we totally overwhelmed? And I ask that because, I mean, it's like every day I wake up overwhelmed. And I mean that.
So then you're overwhelmed.
But I mean that in a great way too. I mean, the opportunity that we all have in front of us to do something that we love, that gets us to go from the artist to the auteur and keep going. We all have that. Does that mean that you have to have something on Netflix? No. So I was saying something to friends earlier. I once had a tattoo show in development, tattoo parlor here in town. I have a couple pieces from them. And I had two partners in the industry. One came from the film side and one came from the television side. And we spent an inordinate amount of time making the perfect deck. We had some celebrity backing. We had celebrities in the pitch reel. It was amazing. I'm like, guys, we're selling this. I guarantee you we're selling this. We went to 5 companies, 3 gave us offers, 2 gave us bona fide offers, straight to pilot. Like, no development steps, done. Then my partners decided that what they really thought was very important was getting it on Showtime. And it was Showtime or nothing. And I still, to this day, see them every once in a while. I'm like, how's that Showtime going for you? Because the reality is, we all want to express ourselves and get something made. So you might be getting it on, and we talked about this quite a bit last time, you might be getting it on YouTube where someone's paying you to put it on YouTube, ultimately, right? You might be getting it on a digital outlet. You might be selling it to a network. You might be selling it to a corporation that really loves the idea. Someone was giving me a pitch earlier today for a show. I'm like, that show could, you could get Travelocity interested in that show. You have to make the decision on, is it Showtime or nothing? Is it NBC or nothing? Because the reality is, we all are creative. We are in awe of what we have, the opportunity we have, but we have to be ready for whatever that takes. And is it more important to get it made on a company like Blueprint, which is an edutainment site, where I pay at max $45,000 an episode? Or do you want to hold out to where you get $450,000 an episode? Here's the thing. Scout that does Queer Eye, Big Fish that does PD Live, Bunim/Murray, these are big companies, Endemol, they are all coming to me begging to get content on my site. Why? Because they need content out there. They're passionate too. So really have those expectations. I know I'm going down a rabbit hole a little bit, but I mean, it's a real bully pulpit for me. This is a business, and we want to see you succeed, not because we just want to drive the passion in you. You all have a story to tell. I can tell. I can see it. It's not about the story. It's about how you can get it out to the world. Okay?
And maybe you can relate to it this way. The television that I fell in love with doesn't exist anymore.
No.
Right? And so what I've learned is that if I'm always chasing the current, then what I'm really chasing is the past. So when I'm watching a television show on a network, that was made and discovered and curated months and maybe even years ago. So I might thinking this is a great show for Bravo. Well, the reality is that might be a great show for Bravo's past. I want to pitch Bravo's future. So you don't really know or can't really determine which network's going to pick you up because you don't know what their future process is going to be. So don't fool yourself that just because you love a TV show on Bravo or TNT or whatever means that where they're going to go next is true. And I could tell you story after story of people who have piloted, broadcasted on television, a new CEO comes in and says, we love that show. It made us money. It's just that we're not doing that next year. And everything, the dream disappears, the success disappeared because of a change in the industry. We
talked a lot in the first one about the idea of research. Understand your markets. This goes parts into reverse engineering. First and foremost, understand what they're looking for. I created a show, we talked about this before, this is my bragging moment. I created a show for HGTV called Fixer Upper.
Wait, which one's that one?
That's these two little couple in Waco, Texas. They do a lot of shiplap. They're now in Target, and they're getting their own network.
What's that guy's name? Skip?
Chip. So here's the thing. That show was created because the network said, we need another Property Brothers. What's our Property Brothers? 2 years later, everyone was going to Real Screen and they were saying, what's our Duck Dynasty? What's our Duck Dynasty? Give us a Duck Dynasty. And that's all you have to go on. But that research time, you still have to have something to say. Because if all you're trying to do is copy what they want you to do, you're in the past.
Yeah, there's a TV show that with the group I'm working right now. who, when TLC called, or I think their agent called them, they asked, "Do you have any wedding shows?"
Oh, this is Andy's show?
Yeah. And they said, "Well, we have this one show we call Drag Me to the Altar, and it's a drag queen show where we help brides, the drags help brides get ready for their wedding day." And the agent or whatever pitched the idea to TLC, and they said, "Interesting, show us a sizzle." So they paid, I want to say, a couple $10,000 to create the sizzle. So they got paid to make the sizzle. I'll put that out there. As they made the sizzle, when they presented it back to network, all the executives. Andy said there was more executives in that meeting than I've ever seen in a meeting before, because TLC is processing something new. It's not what TLC was. He can say they're going in a direction as a network, and he's in the room as they're making that decision. So that show is going to pilot into air, but he can see the turning point of a network. That's when it's exciting, when you're reading the room in that way.
So it gets us into how to present. By the way, I pitched Fixer Upper 8 times. 7 times the network told me it was a failure. They would never hire, they hated the couple. They refused to remember that, but Joanna put it in her book, so it's for posterity. 7 times they said no. 8th time I was in a focus group for another show that got passed on. I'm still upset about that. But I showed this pilot to the person that was doing the focus group, and I'm like, please watch this. And she gave me money the next day to do a better sizzle, because what had ruined it for us is we had a bad sizzle. So again, homework. Pitch deck, sizzle, IP, all this stuff we're talking about comes from the real world. So now we're in the room, how to present. So the first thing is to know, who do you want to have come? I used to hate it when we would go from the production company I worked for a long time, we'd go into some of these meetings, especially at Real Screen, where we'd bring like this army, and I called it like Charlie's Angels. It was the boss, me, and 8 gorgeous Amazon women. I mean, they were all super tall and beautiful. And 14, it felt like. And we'd go into these rooms and there'd be like 93 of us and 2 of them. That is so not the right thing to do. Understand who is key to be in the room. Less is more. 1, not good. Have enough that you can pivot, that you can do the banter. Be witty like we are.
Or not.
Or not. Come on, give us a both. But don't have the squad, right? Have enough people that you have, but have it the people that are important. If what's really important is the cinematography, and you have a cinematographer, have them there.
So you're going to answer this question right now. I'm pretty sure, but I'm going to ask it because it's on this card. Is it beneficial if you have a known talent attached to your project before going into the pitch? And if so, should they come to the meeting with you?
Everyone you bring in, think about why they are there. Cinematographer, I was just about to say, have the cinematographer there, unless they're from Poland and they don't speak English. Been on that show. That doesn't really help, unless you also have a translator, and then is it awkward? So think about who needs to be in the room. It goes back to that honesty and that, the humility of who will help you and who might hurt you. Talent can help. Talent can also hurt.
Yes.
There is an arrogance of talent where you're not quite sure where they're going to go that day. And
yeah, I had a project where Charlie Sheen was attached to it, and it seemed to be beneficial at the beginning, and then he did a couple of tweets, and it was not beneficial at the end to have him in the room with you.
Tiger Blood?
No, I'm not going to.
I had one with a person who I was so close to saying the name, I had to change my mind. Yeah. And this was.
I'm not going to work with Charlie again, so I can say his name. You might need to hold back.
Actually, I'm not going to work with her either. But, this was for a Broadway show. She had written music that we were coming back from a different project we were both working on, and we were on a plane, and she was showing me this music. I was like, this is amazing. So I got one of my best friends is a Broadway producer, and he's done umpteen shows. He's won 6 Tonys, legit. We had a meeting. He fell in love with it. We went to meet with investors in Vegas. I mean, it was just, that was crazy. I've never seen someone bomb so hard in a room in my life as this woman did. It was awful. I mean, I can't even tell you how bad it was. And we were we were coming back from Vegas back to LA, and she was so upset. We had to get the first flight, and we're on Southwest. And first of all, she's on Southwest. Everyone's looking at her, and she's like in row 2, and she's just like, like whole flight, just sobbing hysterically. And I was like, we're done. So, answer to your talent question is, if they're stable and they're meds
and medicated,
help. But then it comes to the next thing: rehearse the room.
Please.
Do not go into a room cold. Know who's going to say what, who's taking what page, why they're taking it, how the segues are going to work.
All the details. Work it out.
Like for some people, it's like, oh wait, like, and that's rehearsed. Yeah. For others, you do that and you're like, don't touch me. Yeah. Like, I'm not kidding. Polish it up.
Please.
Know your banter. Know who's there, why they're there, when the shtick goes to them, even down to if you need someone to interrupt because it's going in a bad way, do you have a sign? Do you have the thing that you do that's going to allow someone to realize, veering off course? He has one for me. He's done it 4 times now.
I just interrupt him. You can already tell.
That's jerk. The other one is to go with priorities and have a focus check. Like that focus check I did earlier to say, are we losing anyone? There's a reason for that. When you're in a room, I mean, this is me. I literally have my calendar, he knows, because I can't even get, like, he can't call me. I won't answer right now because I am scheduled from 7:30 in the morning until 7:30 at night. By the 30-minute mark, I get 450 emails a day. And I'm not kidding. And literally, I have not been able to concentrate fully on anything for months. So you need to be able to, Right. So you need to be able to have some priorities and do some focus checks. Hey, how are we feeling right now? What haven't I answered for you? Yeah. Are you getting the vibe? Be able to read that. The other thing is really to be able to talk about a proof of concept. A lot of us go in the room and think that we need to be able to go from sale to 26 episode thing, or sale to $3 million short film, or whatever it's going to be. There's also this idea of proof of concept. It's also called proof of performance. This is, you get a little money, $5,000, $10,000 max. This is what Andy got. You think it was more? He got more than that?
I think so.
Wow.
Well, they had to do the casting.
Yeah. Okay. But so we'll give you money to come up with a short version of the thing. I will warn you now, you never make money on that. As a matter of fact, you lose money on every single one of those you do. But what it gives you is the ability to get it to the next step. And with everything we're talking about, doing research to get to here to get to the IP to get to a deck to get to a sizzle, all this is about getting to the next step.
And I'll say this just to, the reason why you don't want to do too much ahead of time is, in the case of the sizzle, we're talking about the drag queens, in this case, the network wanted to see a proof of concept, can they work together? Right. So you would have never known that before you pitched the idea, but they had a request, will these 4 queens work together, and how do they work together? So the reason for the sizzle had a specific need. That would have been a waste of money to pitch a sizzle with one thing when they actually would have asked for another. So that's the reason of proof of concept there.
So just to clarify, the proof of concept is you're actually going out and filming something with the real people that you're planning to.
If the DP,
as opposed to like doing a rip back.
Right, if you're going to pitch about the DP has to prove that they can do it.
Yeah, it depends on what it is. Like, is the proof of concept, is the information out there? Like, if it's a documentary, it's probably rip. But it might be rip to tone. Or like you might be like, I'm going to go from footage to animation. So they want to see the proof of concept of how that's going to work.
If your show's about a series of singers, can you actually get those singers queued up? Prove it. Right. Do a test somehow. Right. So that proof of concept is the company that's hiring or the network is hiring you wants to make sure they can verify that you can get it done. They're going to have you prove it.
You can call this it might be a casting reel. It could be, I mean, there's a lot of different things. This is how Fixer Upper got sold. Was they gave me $5,000 to go down to Waco and shoot something better. And that was great. But because they gave us the money, they now own it.
Yeah, always. We talked about that before.
The other things, hold on one second. These other things are a little bit self-explanatory. Discuss their needs. Let's make sure you know going in. Let's talk about what you need right now. Yeah. By the way, don't you tell them their needs.
Right.
Because we talked about this in earlier ones. In your research, you're going to have, don't say, so I know that you're going after 32-year-old inner city men right now. They know what they're going after. And you're probably, to Tim's point, that's what they were going after when the research was done. That's not necessarily who they're going after today. So always make sure, like, hey, we have something in this wheelhouse. I want to make sure this is still relevant for you. And like, I don't want to waste your time.
And you've done the work to get the meeting, and they accepted the meeting. You want to know, why am I here? What is it that you saw in me? Tell me what you're looking for, so that when you're discussing, you can kind of hit those highlights.
Can I pivot on that?
Yeah, of course.
I would disagree on that, only from the standpoint of, you don't need validation. Sorry, yeah. You don't need validation from them. Like, tell me why I'm good.
Oh, not validation. You're right. Yeah.
Right, but what it is you heard enough to get me in the door. Now, before I give you everything, I want to make sure this is worth your time.
Yeah.
Their time is more valuable than your time because they have the checkbook.
Or they could say, well, we love the idea of the wedding show, but we really wanted the queens. Can they do a dancing show? Like,
right.
You don't know what they're looking for.
Or, you know what, we said queens, but we just did some research between that, and what we really need is not queens, we need, clowns.
We wanted a Duck Dynasty just without guys and beards and not in the South and not doing duck calls, but we wanted Duck Dynasty, right? Like, so you have to figure that out.
So then it comes down to this idea of being flexible, and this really comes to this, and this is, if
last
there's,
slide. Yeah.
are we breaking?
Yeah, they just break.
Breaking,
last slide.
okay. So no,
this is our last slide.
No, I'm gonna tease it.
Oh yeah, cool.
So when we come back from break, we're gonna talk about what I honestly think separates those that can from those that want to. And that is the ability to pivot. The idea of being able to think quick on your feet because you've done enough research, enough thinking, enough conversations with your partners that you actually can change a pitch in a minute and then they buy it. It happens all the time.
All the time.
Okay, kids, if you want to start gathering back in your seats, please. Thank you very much. I'll take 2 seconds and remind everybody that when this comes to a close here, if you want to continue the discussion for a little bit, you don't have to move your car, you don't have to do anything, just come downstairs, outside, walk over to Johnny's Pizza. The gentleman will be there, we'll be there, you'll be there hopefully, and it's a good time. So, guys, we'll give you a ring and
I just wanted to be a front man for your voice. Felt like it was the Wizard of Oz coming from somewhere off this side over there.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
One thing to know is we are being kicked out promptly at 9. So we're going to talk faster, which believe me, we can talk a lot faster. So be ready.
So we're going to talk fast but slow because all we're going to do is leave you hanging so you come to Johnny's and ask us more questions there. A lot of the questions you're asking are similar. I answer some over here. And we'll get through some of those questions. But we are available till later, and that's why Johnny's is available. So please don't feel like we're rushing you. We're open all night.
We're rushing one another. It happens. So a question that was asked of me earlier. Wow. Okay, take those cards. A question that was asked of me earlier. A gentleman is doing a documentary or a project, and I started asking, so are you going to partner with someone? You're going to partner with someone, right? One of the things to think about when you're partnering, why are you partnering with them? What's important to them? If you're going to, just like you research the topic and the networks, research who you might want to partner with. So if you had your best of all dreams, they should be someone that either is an expert in the category. Oh, you're working with them? Oh yeah, they do that type of thing really, really well. Or they're an expert at that outlet. Oh, them? Yeah, they do everything on that network. Right? You think about, don't just go to Joe Schmo's production company down the street and knock on the door because they're a production company. Just like everything else, what's the vested interest in you doing that? All right, just a little sidebar.
And your partnership can say that. I will partner with you going to this network. Our partnership breaks up when that network says no. Be as clear as that possible.
So, where we left off was the arts of the pivot. Now, when I said earlier, never bullshit a bullshit artist, this is what a bullshit artist is able to do. Any of us that have been able to cry on cue when you just had a huge burger at lunch, but you somehow got the tears out while also fighting off indigestion, you know how to pivot. It's the same thing. The art of the pivot is being able to read the room and see if what you're doing is helping people, hurting people, freaking people out, you're losing people, they're on their phones. The pivot is the thing that's going to make them go, whoa, that's it, right? So I just want to make sure. So when you are thinking of pivoting is being able to go into a room. I was talking to someone earlier about their pitch, and a pivot is being able to hear feedback that you're getting, and I won't, without divulging the whole pitch, this was a pitch about travel. And if the guy in the room's like, you know, it just needs some kind of hook, a device that allows it to, people to feel like they're part of it, because it feels very loosey-goosey. You know what's interesting that you said that? Tim and I were just having coffee yesterday with the talent, and we were talking about this great idea he had for a countdown clock that would be part of this thing. That's a pivot.
Because it wasn't true until the room said we need something like this.
There's a reason we talked about in the first or second, I don't remember what, they're blurring now, in a good way. I never bring handouts that I leave with people in a room, because I need to be able to go back afterwards and type things to the pivot, so that what I'm going to send them isn't what I had, but what they want. The art of the pivot is being able to get someone to be able to get from that aha moment of I'm smarter than you to, ooh, they're smarter than me and I know how I can get them.
Another easy mistake is that you won them over and then you continue. Right? So once you win them, stop. Find out what won and talk about what comes next from their point of view. You might continue and lose them. So just take the win, stop from the moment, recognize it. If they ask you questions that you can answer further in your deck, great. But if they steal the moment and they start talking, please don't interrupt them in order to get through the last pages of your deck.
This is why you rehearse. And this is why you have set up the Mutt and Jeff routine, or the whoever you're going to be when you go in. Good cop, bad cop. If you've started to go off on a tangent, I am very well known for that. Someone has to be there to wrangle me in. As you've noticed tonight. Yeah. But this is a true thing. He is 100% right. Most failure is because you divulge too much. Mm-hmm. You want people wanting more. Oh my gosh, that is really good. When can I hear more? You know what? We're going to go back. We're going to retool a little bit. We're going to get it to you by, can we say Tuesday? Want it Tuesday? And if that's okay, then I'm going to call you on Wednesday. Just make sure you got it. Make sure we have anything. Give them a reason to go to that next step with you. If you just vomit it all out at the beginning, they have no reason to come back to you.
That's right. Just like dating. Don't vomit on your date.
Don't vomit. I saw that movie. I think you were in it. I think the other thing too, when you start thinking about the art of the pivot, this isn't lying. Do not go in and just make something up that you cannot guarantee. But if you have something that you're like, this demos to urban, 24 to 50, that's a very sweet spot, obviously, but urban, inner city, so you've just limited, you've taken HGTV out of that, and you've taken Hallmark Channel out of that, right? So whatever you're going to say it's this demographic. Well, there's a big difference between an all Asian cast and 3 African Americans in it, or 2 Latinos, or an all white Southern cast. You need to read the room as to what they're looking, and the pivot might be as much as, you know, they've been talking about hiring an apprentice. And I think this is a great way for us to get your network's flavor in this. Because that role, imagine if that role fits. You've already done the research on that network. You know, you don't go to Lifetime with a project about 5 guys redoing cars. It's a women's network.
I'm going to enter this question in this process too before we move on.
Do it.
The person asks, in your pitch, when you're discussing budget, should you include actors' rates? And that's really part of the pivot process. You don't have to have the actors' rates in it, but if they ask the question, you can reveal the actors' rates. It's good for you to know them, But there's no reason you have to include everything in your deck. You could always reveal them if it's important. So no, you don't have to put everything all out there all the time. You can know things, write it out, put it on a piece of paper in the room if you need to.
Well, I may even go further. Don't talk money in the deal, in the pitch. You're in the room, find out, because you might say a number that freaks them out. Either too low, like these guys are sophomoric, they don't know what they're doing, because how in the world can you do it for that price? Way too high, way too arrogant. I don't give numbers. If they ask for specific things, I often will ask why. So you're asking that budget number. I want to be careful because whoever says the budget number first loses. So why do you want to know that information? Let me make sure I give you a range that we both feel comfortable saying. That's very comfortable saying that. We've all done deals. And it is true. First person that puts down the dollar number loses because they could have gotten more or less, or now they don't have a job. Right, because they said too much. So I tend not to. All right, the deal. So you've sold the project, what next? Here are the big things I'm gonna ask. Are you prepared? The reason we talk about partnerships is what if they go, great, now how are you gonna make it? You go, I don't know.
Right.
You had the IP, so you went in and they were like, this is awesome, make that Chernobyl thing. All right, okay. So are you prepared? Have you thought about what that's gonna take? How many shoot days is it? Are you going to need to have, can you do it union or non-union? Is it local? How big is your art department? You know, all those things. Do you need to have a culinary team? You know, it's these random things. Do you need to have an audience team? Like, make sure you've thought through all that and you've really understood. And do you have a clear direction? So they say, great, now how are you going to make it? You go, you know, I'm not sure, I'm waiting for you to tell me. It happens a lot. But this isn't a director, like even when you go in, those of you that are actors in the room, you go into an audition, you have decided what your character is. You have a point of view. You might lose, but you have a point of view. So,
if you have an idea that you're not prepared for, go into the room with a different idea you are prepared for. If in the room the opportunity comes to talk about this idea, you can say, I don't really know the output yet, but here's another one.
Yeah.
And you can read the room that way. Then you can reveal that I'm not really ready all the way with this project, but here's the thought. They'll buy into that. They'll have an excuse. But you have to walk into the room that's completely ready to pitch and execute through and through.
One of the sayings my dad said, taught me that I have used forever is, I need to benefit from your thinking and experience. So to your point, being able to say, you know, I have my point of view, but I'm really interested in how this is going to be best for you. You're paying. How is this going to work best for you? That's an honest question. But you still have to have your point of view. You still have to be prepared. When they come down, the rubber hits the road, you better be able to answer the questions. And if you don't think you can, that's when you need to partner. Mm-hmm. Do you have a contract in place? Do you have a contract in place with the partners, or if you've brought in an actor, or you've said an actor's name or a type of music you're going to use, do you have the right to that? On my network on NBC, because we're part of NBC, I'm trying to launch, I have dance is one of our things. So if anyone knows Twitch, he's Ellen's sidekick. He was on So You Think You Can Dance. And so Twitch does a lot of work for me. And Twitch wanted to use very specific music. Well, because I'm NBC, all the music companies want to charge me NBC rates, which is $20,000 per song plus 10% of the gross revenue of the platform, not of the song.
How do I sell something to NBC? That's the question.
I can't do that. I'm like, you're going to use needle drop music because I can't afford to use this other music. I better know that beforehand. Because if I've now pitched it and said this song is going to be part of it, it's all around this song, and I can't get the rights, you've just lost the deal. Deals come and go. I had a big thing in television where I had a bell, and people would ring the bell, and I would never let people ring the bell when we got a deal. It wasn't until something aired on television as a series, not as a pilot, because there are still 14 more steps where it can go south. So this is where the importance of being truthful. Know what you know and know what you don't, and make sure you ask all the right questions. How long is your billing process? Do you pay in net 30? Do you pay in net 60? That's a huge difference. If you have an outlay where you're having to pay a whole team, are they going to give you 30% up front? Are they going to give you 50% up front? Do they give you nothing up front? How long does it take to be set up as a vendor? I know these are really business boring questions, but if you're having to outlay to cover the cost of a production, you better know how you're going to be able to pay it.
Who's going to clear the rights for the clips? Who's going to clear the rights for the songs? How does the legal contracts work for that clearance? Do you have the liability? Do you need the insurance? Do they have the insurance to cover those items? Those are all part of those kind of nitpicking.
How many of you, I will raise my own hand here, how many of you look at this and go, I'm creative, I know nothing about budgets and schedules and I hate it? Thank you for being honest.
All of you need a partner.
You do, or you need to have done a lot of research. So much of this is online, like averages here and there. But again, research. Measure twice, cut once. Like great adage for life.
But I'll say, entrepreneurially speaking, don't think you need to do everything.
Agreed.
That's what other people are for.
That's what the bottom was, and it should say that was a typo. I don't think forget. Don't forget. Don't forget a CPA and attorney. We've talked about it before. Maybe the person that you need to bring in is a budgeting person, a line producer. Bring that person in when you're developing the idea. Like, don't develop an idea that's $450,000 an episode and then go try to sell it to me and I won't pay it.
And then the next question you're going to ask us is, where do I get that person? Our answer is yes. That's the thing you have to figure out. That's being prepared. Find out where those people come from, get them, because somebody has to get them. That's the part of the job.
Right. This is the type of stuff that separates those that are actually, that I will give a show to and those that I will not. I have some very, very, very close friends that pitch me shows, and I've been very honest with them, and one of them doesn't want to be my friend right now because they have a great idea, but they can't in a million years realize it.
So I'll say this again, that's why we do this inside of a community. The people around you in this room are learning and want to know the same thing you know. Please go to Johnny's and start talking to each other, because those pieces of parts exist in this room. I see a hand over there. Is that a quick question?
Just clear something up, because you said you don't talk numbers. Is that a different number from actually talking about the budget?
I talk,
I'll say this too.
Yeah.
This is after you. We said don't do that in the pitch. This is after you win. We've moved the conversation forward of, now that you're talking the deal, yes, you have to get the budget and schedule.
Yeah, they're going to say, great, we have a deal and we have a handshake, but now you have to be able to prove it. I'm a big believer in the first piece of this 3-part series. We talked a lot about that in research. You better have been thinking through all this. So you're going into the pitch with a good idea in your mind what it's going to cost. You've gone into the pitch with a good idea of what that network or whomever is willing to pay. If you go into a network, there was a question here on a card, and I'm paraphrasing it, was, I've gone to XYZQL networks, and they all said no, so now I'm going to go to these. I would suggest, humbly, respectfully.
And should I change my pitch?
And sure, yeah. I would say respectfully, what did you do wrong? Was the idea good enough? Had you thought it through? Were you able to make the point that with the confidence that you can actually do this? Because my job, I get pitched so often. Some of my friends get pitched 500 times a month. Not as an individual, but as a team of people. And if you only have room for 4 things on a docket in a month to say yes to, not let alone get in the system, out of 500, plus the ones that you're still thinking about from the month before and the month before, I'm looking to poke holes. Are you really serious about what you're doing? Yeah. So when I'm in a pitch and I say don't talk budgets, don't go in and saying, so we're going to pay union rates, and and don't get down to the things thinking that you need to get into the nitty gritty. So that
in the pitch process,
right? So they see that you're really smart about budgets, because if you're smart, if you come in and say, listen, this is something that we think can be done depending on where we ultimately take this. This can go anywhere from, this is somewhere in the $100,000 to $400,000 range. And I can walk you through those differences because they're all really cool. But I'm telling you this because I know, I know that a number is a number, and it's really about the creative that we come up with. Now I'm going like, wow, they're cool. All right, we've talked about budget, move on.
Yeah.
Right?
So the pitch process, you reveal what you need to in order to get the deal. When you get the deal, now you have to start doing this kind of homework and make it happen.
And again, this is the type of stuff. Again, it just separates the wheat from the chaff. I'm gonna go this. We're getting really down the pipe. Let's get the deal, and then we can come back. Give us a call. If you get the deal, I will walk you. I will hand walk you through this. If you get that deal, I'm gonna be so excited.
We're trying to get you to the 120% mark in our presentation, so you know that there's more to follow.
Yeah.
We're not expecting you to understand or take on all this today.
The big thing to know here, and this kind of goes from the very beginning, one of the first things we said on the first episode, actually in Miami in January, is be honest with the people that you're working with. Know that this is a process that we're always learning from. We don't have all the answers. Most think they do. They do not. You don't have all the answers. Your idea isn't perfect. We're all figuring it out. The more you're honest, but still confident, the better. And I'm going to just leave the rest of this because I do think it gets, a minutia. But this is one I would like to talk on. So you might also say that, you know what, screw it. I'm just going to put it on YouTube by myself. There are people in the room that I know because I've seen their YouTube channels. Here's the thing to think about from expectation and reality. Yes, there are people that make a lot of money off of putting stuff on YouTube or other digital outlets. The vast majority do not. So you have to be very comfortable in yourself. Are you doing it for creative expression? Are you doing it as an artist? Or are you doing it as a business? If you want to do it as a business, you then need to start thinking from a self-distribution standpoint and go through that same research process. What are the best practices? What's the best practices for monetization? How do we boost our viewership? How do we do that through multiple channels? What do we need to do to get past that hurdle? There's a bunch of different hurdles. One of my talent, I just saw an Instagram from her today. She just got 200,000 YouTube followers. And that's a big threshold number. 200,000 YouTube followers, you're starting to make money, some decent money. And she got a big plaque, and it was a whole kind of thing she was doing an unveiling. She has worked her tail off to figure out how to turn that into a business. She was more important, for her, she changed what she was about in her YouTube because she said, the reality is that if I want to make money on this channel, it's not just me being an artist. That channel's like everything else. I got to think of it like a business. How do I have to change myself to make it work? So I am not against self-distribution. I think you can self-distribute films. The faith community is loaded with great examples of wins of distributed films because they were able to look at the marketing within the faith community and how that could build stuff up. That's a great example of it does work. It does work on YouTube. If this is the best way for you to also prove that you have something that's worth someone else investing in, if that's the next step, like, look, I mean, I'm using YouTube not so much to make money, but to be my proof of concept, to give you something. Almost every network wants to watch something on YouTube to make sure the person knows. But like, I will only hire people that I can see serious work that shows me that they're worth it.
So you almost said something really important, so I'm going to say it because you stopped.
Thanks, man. That's the nicest thing you've said to me in like a week.
Well, you said the word investors and then you went this way, but I'll just say it as clear as possible. In the business of self-distribution, you have to figure out how other people make money from what you're doing.
100%.
If you can figure out how other people can make money from what you're doing, then you can self-distribute. If you're only worried about you making money from what you're doing, please don't self-distribute.
Well, unless by self-distributing, you know it's just going to be a side hustle for you because it's ultimately going to have an objective of proving that you have what it takes as a talent, as a producer, as a shooter, as an editor, whatever that thing is. As a testing ground, great. But to your point, if you want to turn it into actual cha-ching, like my friend, she has Ryobi, Home Depot, they're kind of one and the same. Whatever clothing company she wears, they've all been sponsoring her for 2 years.
And they sponsor her because they know the audience she has will spend money with them. Right. So she figured out who makes money from what I do. She goes after those brands or those people so that when they work with her, they make money.
By the way, all these slides are up on the thing, but I see people taking photos. I do that too, and then I go back like 4 weeks later. I'm like, what was that photo from? I do that all the time. But I'm not discouraging you from taking photos. Please take photos if it helps. But these are the types of things we talked about: budgets, timelines, what your expectations are, understanding how you distribute it. It's not, you don't just put it up on YouTube and you get some, you get views. You have to, it's a process. You have to figure out how to play the game. What's your social strategy? Are you using talent or influencers thinking that they're going to lift the boat? By the way, they only lift the boat if they get paid.
By the way, self-distribution can also be on a network. For $200,000, you can buy a half-hour show on CBS on Sunday morning. The question is, when you buy that half-hour show for $200,000, who's going to spend the money? Who are you going to get the audience for, and how do they make money with you? So it's not just social media.
I'm working on Time Buys right now because I have, as a digital outlet of NBC, I need, my whole company is based on subs coming in, and we're in SVOD, just like Netflix or Hulu. We make money off of subscribers. So I have to do stuff front of paywall on linear to get those subscribers to come in. But the only way I can do it, because I'm not going to be able to get, I can't just say to Bravo, give me time on Bravo. I got to buy it. So the only way I'm able to do it, and I'm a network, the only way I'm able to do it is I have to figure out the brand that wants to partner with me to get on Bravo to the point that they're willing to pay for it, because they want Bravo and me. So I'm in the same boat as all of you. I'm trying to figure out how to make money to pay for the stuff that I'm trying to do too.
You just lost half the people. Go for it.
So the big thing is, and this is the big question, the 4 quadrants. How does this benefit you long term? If you have a script that you've been working on forever, like the script that I'm reselling right now, that wasn't my job. Notice I didn't say I'm a script writer and I have a script that I've been trying to sell for 15 years. None of you would have paid attention to a thing we've said, and you might not have anyway. But that script is part and parcel of my creative journey that I've already proven myself to be a curator. I have a track record. I have done this work. I have started exactly where you are. I did not go to school for this. I went to law school. I have a poli-sci degree. You know, I fell into this. And I figured out the steps and I worked through every single day. And this is because, to me, this is my passion, but this is my job. And I've had a successful career, as have you, because we have figured out how just to do exactly this. Do the research, do the steps, and then be able to go in a room and be confident enough, because you know your stuff, that people go, I'm going to buy that from you.
And this is the answer to the question that many of you are asking and going to ask us, continue. If I share an idea with a network and I don't have something locked in and they steal my idea, or how do they have some idea? This last slide is the answer. They're not stealing your idea. They're giving you an opportunity to advance your career. It's the fact you can come up with an idea that they want, come up with 50 more. If you're really going to do a career, it's not just the one win. It's the continual output of your career, of the thoughts, of the things you've learned, the process you learned from that experience, that opportunity. That's what we want you to know. It's overall long-term development of you in this process. That's the real win.
All right, so now we have questions. Now the fun's over. So we have some questions. All right, here's one. How do you overcome the fear of having projects' ideas stolen or borrowed or modified? Welcome to the world of creativity. I have had many projects. I pitched a project once to MTV. They loved the project. They greenlit the project. But I was just a lowly producer at MTV, and I hadn't figured out the way the world worked yet. Mm-hmm. The executive MTV left, went to another network, and strangely enough, that exact show was on the air 2 years later. Huh.
And look where Patrick ended up.
I learned. Yeah.
I have a comment to that because people in the industry, especially screenwriters, they have that issue all the time.
Yes.
I tell them to switch it up, either change the location or even the language.
100%. I have, I mean,
have a different impact in that culture.
registering a WGA does not an idea lock. We all know that. That's why have a lawyer, have IP that is, to your point, you need to have your angle that isn't just, I'm going to do a show about crab fishermen. Been done a few times.
But also, I
It's
keep
gonna
trying to
happen.
say this too, like an idea is just an idea
Right.
too. Come up with 1 million of them. Some of them disappear. Some other people have. Just feel free with that. Do you consider IP, or do you consider copyright IP protection?
No.
The answer is yes and no. Depends on what you're copywriting, what that means to your show.
Agreed.
So it's locked in on that show. If what you're going to sell on the show is a blender and it has a special name, copyright that name so the blender works, so the show goes out there. If
But then someone can say they're just going to change the name of the blender and they have a whole different show. So you have to think about, like, what does a copyright do? Reality is, neither one of us are lawyers.
Yes.
Consult a lawyer.
Yes, you consult a lawyer.
All right, my turn. What is the best way to cold pitch someone who accepted you on LinkedIn? From today, how many think that you should cold pitch someone that you accepted you on LinkedIn? Raise your hands. No. I'm going to say don't do it. I'm sure you're a very fine person, but I would say no. Because the whole idea is you only have one time to do this. You better have done your research, you better understand, and they better know why they're seeing you. Nothing is harder than when someone does something like, and that's what I'm saying, seriously, don't pitch me because it's out of context. I'm not ready for it.
What if you work with them, like on past shows?
If they've accepted, then you need to say, I want to come in and pitch you in your office.
Yeah.
Then that's not a cold pitch. Then you've teed that up. I have an idea that I would really like to pitch you. I want to benefit from your thinking experience. And I would even say, don't go in saying, I want to sell it to you. I want to tell it to you. Because then they don't feel that it is the pressure of, I have to say yes to it. They might go, dude, that is really, really good. I had breakfast with a talent this morning who told me something, and I was like, that is really awesome. I've hooked him up with an agent. I hooked him up with Jonathan Adler. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a designer. And I hooked him up with another designer friend of mine because they all could do this together. So he didn't come to me saying, I need to pitch, I'm going to sell you. And he didn't do it cold. That'd be my answer.
There's 3 questions that ask a similar, or 3 cards that ask a similar question.
Yes, no, maybe.
And the question I'm going to say is, what's the best way to network so that you can get the meeting?
So we talked about this earlier. The best way to network, I mean, first of all, everyone is a potential. Don't feel afraid to ask people, what do you do? Oh, have you ever worked with Amazon? If that's who you're trying to get me with. Like, you have to be willing to go through you have to be willing to schmooze and go through the thing. But so much of this has to be you figuring out the path.
NATPE has a great show that's coming up in January. There'll be hundreds of people walking around a hotel room. Many of them will be drinking at a bar. You sit down next to a person, you ask them questions, you figure out what they're doing, you get their business card. There are going to be tents, there are going to be tables, there's going to be conversations taking place. Pay $500, get to Miami, walk around the session, meet people. That's the beginning of networking. You're in a room full of people. They know people, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers. You're in Los Angeles. You probably meet the person next to you at the gymnasium. Those are the people you need to start talking about. And here's the trick I learned. If you're talking about something that you're doing that requires someone else to attach to it, always talk about your future. I'm working on a TV show. I'm trying to get onto a network. Other people can attach themselves to that process. They say, I know someone at network. I know someone available to do that stuff. I know someone's made TV shows in the past. And you say, thanks, introduce me to them. That beginning of your future talk is how people can be part of your journey or help you along your journey.
But one thing I would add to that, you have to do this again with humility. It is not, I need to get to so-and-so, I have a great idea. Because what's in it for them? The person that you're asking at the bar, the conversation should not be one-sided where at the end of the day, all you're trying to do is get up that ladder. Because people smell that. Right? You've all done that, where people have wanted something from you, is to borrow money or lawnmower or something or other, snowblower. I live in Denver. But I have one neighbor that keeps asking me, and I'm like, you always leave your trash can in my yard. So, no, you do not get it. But like, you have to go in, you really do need to go into this with the eyes that you are a sponge trying to get to that next level. And really, truly be humble about that.
Someone asked how you get representation.
It's
Google?
No, it's a crapshoot. You know, my friend today, he has an agent, but I am at a luxury of, I know a lot of agents. I've been in this business for a long time, and I said, I don't think that's the right agent for you. I think what you need is actually not an agent. You need a manager, and you need someone like Ken, my friend Ken, who does his genre. Again, it goes back to get someone that actually can help you because they know what you do. Just because you're an actor, you don't go to William Morris thinking, I'm gonna get William Morris. Matter of fact, sometimes the worst thing you can do is go to CAA or William Morris because you're the lowest of the low on their totem pole. So you get nothing. So you need to think about getting someone from representation who actually can move the needle for you, but that you actually will move the needle for them. And again, a lot of this is trial and error, asking questions, telling people what you're doing, saying, who would you go to, in my opinion, in my world?
I'm going to answer a couple of these real quick.
Go.
What's the best way to pitch somebody using LinkedIn? Simple, don't. How do you get into a meeting? Or how do you, that was the same question. In your pitch, when discussing, nope, that's that one. No, these are old ones, sorry.
Oh my God, this is so great. We're almost we're gonna open it up. We have 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 more minutes.
Yes.
So third-party approaching, like your Drew Barrymore story, approaching a production company versus approaching and possibly well-poisoning, approaching a network directly.
So in that instance, we had already soft pitched a bunch of networks, and we had soft pitched enough that we knew that what our roadblock was we didn't have the name in that world. So we asked our agent who has that name. We started asking our agent and other people who would have the name that would get this, and someone said, oh, I can introduce you to Drew. So we went in and met with Nancy, her business partner, and she liked it enough that we moved forward. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. We have to be out of here in 2 minutes, right?
Okay, this is the last one.
Yeah.
You are lucky man.
Thank you. What happens if you're really tight with a high-up executive VP who you're really tight with, you've gone to games with, baseball games with, you drank beer and everything, who won't take you serious because you come from a different side of the...
That's the best reason to partner. That's the Drew Barrymore story. We had a ton of credits. We had been up for a bunch of Emmys. But they didn't look at us in that genre, and they were like, you can't do that genre. Well, first of all, of course we could. But sometimes the best thing you need to do is go around, or it might be because he's your friend.
Can I tell you that you could go to someone else and say, I'm talking to so-and-so, and he goes, what are you talking to them about? And then they'll see a different light too.
Yeah.
Before we leave, I want you to write down this URL again, RevThink.com/NATPE. This presentation is available on that website when you go. But I want to introduce an idea to you. Patrick and I are doing what we call pitch day. What it meant in the past was Patrick and I would come to Los Angeles for 2 days and drive around Los Angeles to meet people and hear their pitches. What we've decided this year is to sit down in one location and have people come to us. So what we want to do is Patrick and I and a couple of our friends who are TV show producers will be sitting down there, and they want to hear pitches. They are your future partners. They want to hear what's going on. We want to make it easy for them, hard on you. But we want to find a place and sit down and do that. It'll probably happen in March.
5.
So please sign up on this website if you're interested, and we can include you on that pitch day.
And that's a wrap.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
For that.